Sergeant Grace.
Damn, I'm dry,
I shouted into the comms as I heard the all-too-familiar clicking noise of my bolter running out of ammo again. I took cover behind another building as a hail of plasma came sailing my way from the line of Yaleans that pushed forward with reckless abandon. "Request received. Stand by for resupply," came the voice of the head of the armory. While I was waiting for the resupply drone to make its way from the armory to the fight, I looked at the camera feed of the battle. Considering how badly we were outnumbered, it was extremely satisfying to see our forces at the very least holding back the horde of aliens that were hell-bent on taking the ship. The fighting had been going on for 2 minutes now, and several more pods worth of soldiers had made their way into the engagement, while all we had for reinforcements were artillery and tanks made for human-sized crew and human-sized ground forces. While the tanks and artillery didn't pack the same punch as a bolter, they were a valuable asset to have for the simple fact that they were small, hard to hit, and had similar armor capabilities that mechs had. I watched in fascination as a squad of Yaleans tried desperately to gun down a group of 10 tanks that refused to back down, allowing one of the mechhead combatants to put a well-placed bolter round in 3 of them, while the tanks finished off the last one. On another camera, I saw a group of artillery guns bombard a particularly stuck-in group of aliens. Their body armor may be the best that they've come up with, but high-explosive armor-piercing anti-tank rounds are high-explosive armor-piercing anti-tank rounds. Doesn't matter who you are, you're probably going to die. And all of this didn't even account for another facet of our forces. The ground troops that weren't lucky enough to get a mech to drive were given all manner of explosive weapons and armored vehicles to get them close enough to start sabotaging things. I looked at another feed of a soldier peeking around a corner long enough to fire a rocket at the face of one of those damn Xenos. It was quite satisfying to see the alien's head explode into a shower of gore that covered the others around it. They tried to shoot the human, but they ducked into the building itself before they could get shot. I saw another human soldier on the top of one of the apartment buildings throw a crate's worth of explosives off the roof and at the feet of another squad of aliens, painting the block they were standing in a sickly green, like a toddler that found the paint bucket. Come to think of it, the only reason us mechs are here is to give the enemy something to shoot at that isn't the people doing the actual damage. I shrugged to myself as I finally saw the resupply drone flying towards me. It was large and bulky, with enough ammo to keep me going for another couple of minutes or so if I was lucky. I ejected the spent ammo pack on my back and prepared for the docking procedure. I was so preoccupied with getting more ammo that I didn't even notice the Yalean that managed to sneak up on me. I was shoved into the wall of the apartment building that I was taking cover behind, crumbling the building partially as I fell to the ground with the Yalean on top of me. The rubble obscured my vision as the sensors on my chest reported a heavy weight being put on it. I couldn't tell if it was more rubble or the Yalean that thought it was a good idea to get on top of me. I made to get up when the mech reported damage in the left shoulder, right where 2 plates of armor met, and a sickening, chittering voice said, "You Terrans think that you can stop what's coming. I am going to enjoy this." Horror flooded my system as I tried to move even more, only to find myself pinned down by the rubble and the enemy on top of me. I shook the head of the mech from side to side, desperately trying to get rid of the rubble and see my attacker, but to no avail. I tried to throw off the attacker by flailing the arms, but found to my horror that the left one wasn't working at all. The damage reports kept getting longer and more urgent. "I need fucking help now!" I shouted into the mic. This can't be how I go out. My mech pinned down underneath rubble as it is slowly pulled apart by a single combatant in what is essentially the home base for humanity outside of the Sol system. While I could guarantee that my name would go down in history for several reasons, I did not want this to be my end. I flailed around with my right arm until I had the handle. I was pulling it out of its sheath when I heard a loud gunshot somewhere above me and heard the slump of a body hitting armor. The knife was removed from the shoulder blade, and I suddenly saw the rubble being swept off me until I finally saw the face of Colin's mech. He offered a hand to help me up. "You broken yet, Sarge?" "The left arm's non-functional, but I only need one to fire a bolter, so I'm still in this fight," I replied as I took his hand and got hauled up. He let go of my hand and picked up the resupply drone. It looked like it got shot to hell, with several plasma blasts creating craters in the scarred metal. That didn't change the fact that it was still functional. "Here you go, Sarge. You're going to need it. Unless you're planning to take on the whole force with a pocket knife." "Quit it with the damn quips and get that shit going, Collins. That's an order," I snapped, still shaken by my personal encounter with the enemy. I turned around and felt the familiar weight of the ammo drone settle and click onto my back. I gave a sigh of relief as I heard rounds being funneled into the gun mounted to my wrist. I heard the familiar sound of a round getting funneled into the receiver. "Now who's ready to kill some Xenos bastards?"
Elias. Oh God, oh shit, oh fuck. That was the only thing on my mind as I tried desperately to huddle in the corner of my apartment, flinching at the slightest noise. I had to admit, though, that I felt the explosions more than I heard them, as so many had taken place that I barely heard anything. Tears ran down my face as I looked down at my phone. I had desperately been trying to reach my wife and kids since the attacks had started, but I couldn't reach them. After 30 minutes of arguing with my boss that I had to find out if they were okay, I had finally made it to the apartment before everything went to shit. But before I could get out, everything just started happening at once. I could hear the chittering of alien speech outside of the window, and I knew it was only a matter of time until they either found me or demolished the building that I was in. As I closed my eyes and began to sob more and more, I resigned myself to probably never seeing my family ever again. That was until I heard the door break down and footsteps enter the living room. I looked up in curiosity as I saw a soldier with a rocket launcher go to the window, open it, aim the rocket at what I presume was an alien, and fire, deafening me more than I already was. As he slung the rocket off his shoulder to load another, he happened to spot me in the corner of the room. He did a double take before crossing the room over to me, gripping my shoulder. I couldn't hear what he was saying very well, but I managed to hear him the second time through the ringing. "What the fuck are you still doing here?" "What the fuck are you still doing here?" I heard the soldier shout once more before I finally registered what he was asking me. My eyes shifted from the oxygen mask that he was wearing down his body to the powered exosuit that he was wearing, a common fixture in the battlefields of the last century or so. The soldier grabbed my shoulder, shook me with the hand that wasn't preoccupied with holding onto the rocket launcher, and he spoke again. "I asked you a question. What the fuck are you still doing here?" I swallowed a dry swallow and looked back up to the masked face. I came here to look for my family. The phone lines were down and I couldn't check if they were safe. So I came back here." "Ignoring the evacuation order? What the fuck were you thinking?" asked the soldier. But I wasn't paying attention anymore. My eyes were drawn back over to the window, where I saw a massive shape loom in the frame of the window that the soldier had fired from. My eyes widened in horror as the shape moved a bit more, so all I saw was the compound eye of a giant bug. The soldier noticed this too, because after swearing, he dropped the rocket launcher and brought up a rifle that had previously gone unnoticed by me. He fired a quick burst at the eye, causing the massive insect on the other end to recoil in pain. Both the shots fired, and the screech of the giant outside caused my ears to ring, but the ringing quickly faded back into the background noises of the battle. Satisfied with his performance, the soldier looked back over at me. "It's not safe in this building anymore. We have to go." Not wanting to argue with the man that saved my life, I silently nodded and shakily got up on my feet. Where will we go?" I asked, mentally chiding myself for asking such a stupid question. "Well," replied the soldier, as he started jogging out of the apartment and into the hallway, "we're about 10 blocks away from the front lines, and neither of us are small enough to fit into the drone tunnels underneath the buildings here. That only leaves two options. Either we get airlifted out of here, or we leg it back to the lines." He seemed to anticipate my question because he said, "And airlifting us out of here is not an option because this building is probably going to be demolished in a minute or two, so legging it is going to be our best option." "Won't they pick us off when we're in the open?" I asked as we got into the elevator and started shooting down to the ground floor. The soldier gave a grin that suggested that he had a plan. "Oh, I'm sure with the mechs they'll have much bigger fish to fry than us."
"Sergeant Grace."
"What the fuck do you mean that there's a civvy in the AO?" I roared into the mic as I dumped more bolter rounds downrange until I heard the familiar clicking again and sent the signal for another resupply. These alien bastards don't know when to fucking quit. "That means that I've got a fucking civvy with me, and I don't know what the hell to do, Sarge." came the reply. I took a deep breath and held it for a couple of seconds. There was no need to panic. All that would do is sow discord in our forces and lose morale, and that was the last thing that we would want to do. All right, stay where you are. We'll work our way towards you and get you out of there. Not an option, Sarge. We've been found out. They're systematically destroying all the buildings in the area, and we're rapidly losing places to hide. If something is going to happen, it better happen now, Sarge. I clenched my teeth as I thought about what could be done. There was no way that we could make a push significant enough to get to the two of them, at the very least without compromising our lines in the rest of the engagement. Simply put, the only way that they were going to get rescued was for them to rescue themselves, which was going to be a miracle in itself. I called it in to command as I burst down another squad of Yaleans that seemed hell-bent to break through our lines. There was green everywhere now as I surveyed the battle, with the occasional streaks of red that were scattered every which way, but especially behind the lines. I patched into the security network and tried to find the soldier and his civilian shadow, but the entire network for that section was almost completely down. "I heard that you have a civilian problem down there," came the familiar voice of Major Morrow, a hint of humor in his otherwise stern tone. "Yeah, but we have no way of getting to them without completely destabilizing our lines. Unless you have something in mind, Major?" I asked, hoping that by some miracle he would deliver some good news. "It's looking like there's a single APC about 4 blocks away from your guys. If they can get to that, then they shouldn't have any problems getting back to safety." I furrowed my brow. Why the hell would an APC be abandoned on the battlefield? "There has to be a catch, isn't there?" I asked. I heard a slight chuckle at the other end. "Well, the damn thing was hit by a bunch of explosives that the enemy was rocking, so most of the armor is completely shot to hell. So all you're really getting from that shit is mobility, but that's better than nothing, and all that you're going to get." I sighed. "How's it looking everywhere else?" I asked, fully expecting to get nothing but bad news. "Not so good. Your group there is holding the lines the best, but that's just because they haven't committed that many resources to fighting you there. Everyone else is getting pushed back." "Is there any chance of broken ties protocols being enacted?" I asked. Ever since humanity discovered aliens and the massive disadvantage we had against them, it was always priority number 1 to keep the secret of the Sol system, and if we had to sacrifice the lives of everyone on this ship to do so, that was the price of the safety of the rest of humanity. It would not be an easy choice, but one that had to be made. "Unclear. The Admiral has made the order to prep the reactor, but no orders to destroy the ship has been made yet." I let out a sigh of relief. So long as the reinforcements came before then, we would be fine. "Any ETA on reinforcements?" I asked. "About 6 minutes," replied the Major. "Oh, thank God," I breathed into the mic as my resupply drone finally made it to me. "Well, I'm glad that you feel that way. Now let them know they have an exit strategy," shouted Morrow. Cocky bastard always loved making commentaries on things that I said. "Elias." We had long since fled to another building, one that wasn't toppled over by the invaders for being a suspected hiding spot for us humans. The soldier had helped me stop panicking and made sure that I followed him every step of the way. "You want us to do what?" I heard the soldier shout into his radio as he paced the room. It was obvious by the way that he was speaking that he was not happy about whatever information that he was given. "Oh, and what if they spot us en route? What the hell then?" There was relative silence as he listened. "Fuck, fine. Wish us fucking luck then, sir." He looked like he wanted to kill something. "What did they say?" I asked, fearing whatever he was going to say. "The bad news is that we're too spread thin to get any kind of real support. The good news is that there's a wrecked but still usable APC about 4 blocks away that we could make a getaway in." He took a breath and then continued speaking. "The rest of the bad news is that we've got hostiles on our path." My breathing got more erratic. "Is there another way?" I asked, desperate not to go out there again. "Unless you want to die, I don't see any other way out of here," replied the humorless soldier. "God help us all.